Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to a moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Today in Hello Open Metaverse, brought to you by Animoca Brands, we're chatting with returning guest Mohamed Ezeldin. Mo heads up the Tokenomics team at Animoca Brands, a leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and gamification that is working to advance digital property rights and contribute to the establishment of the open metaverse. Today, he's joined by Jordan Fried, founder and CEO of NFT.com. Today, we're chatting about the collapse of Sam Bankman's cryptocurrency exchange, FTX, what went wrong, and the impacts this will have on the industry. Crypto exchange FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection not long ago after a swift fall from grace. The company's valuation plunged from 32 billion to bankruptcy in a matter of days, dragging down founder and CEO Sam Bankman-Fried's $16 billion net worth to near zero. So far, the fallout has meant the loss, freeze, or write down of at least $1.8 billion in funds, comprising mostly equity investors from past funding rounds and firms who held money with FTX. It also accounts for the hundreds of millions of dollars in credit, loans, and acquisition financing between FTX, its U.S. subsidiary, Alameda Research, and outside parties. Now, interestingly enough, Alameda was a major trader in the cryptocurrency space and traded frequently on FTX's platform. Surprise, surprise, Sam Bankman-Fried was the founder and majority owner of Alameda. Now, he eventually ceded control of its operations and focused primarily on his role as CEO of crypto exchange FTX, which he founded back in 2019. At its peak, FTX amassed a valuation of roughly $32 billion and was the world's third largest cryptocurrency exchange by volume. So what went wrong? Well, here to chat FTX and give us perspective is Jordan and Mohamed. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us on.
So, guys, this is quite the perplexing story. So, in the simplest way, Jordan, let's start with you. For our listeners and viewers, what happened to FTX in your own words?
Yeah, this is very simple. The fundamentals of cryptocurrency are still intact. The Bitcoin network is strong. It's never gone down. In fact, we've seen all-time highs in terms of user accounts on the network and the hash rate. It's fantastic. And I think the business case for why we need Bitcoin in a period of hyperinflation, rising interest rates globally, is stronger now more than ever. What you have here is a bad actor, a case of a centralized exchange that took on user deposits, that was domiciled in a sketchy jurisdiction in the Bahamas, that worked hand in hand with the government to change that regulation, that had no true governance, never held a board meeting, had a massive lack of internal financial controls and cash controls, where they were supposed to be fiduciaries of, as you said, Zen, $1.8 billion in outside capital. We saw that largely spent on personal apartments. We saw that allocated towards really aggressive market making over at Alameda, the other firm that you mentioned. This is just a breakdown in trust in our space. Sam was a public figure, a spokesperson for crypto in the United States, active in DC, lobbying US regulators, working with Gary Gensler and the current administration to create pro-crypto and crypto-friendly regulation. But as it turned out to be a massive disappointment and even a fraud in some cases. So we're still dealing with this. We're learning more every day, but it's a big shock for all of us working in the crypto space.
Yeah, FTX's collapse, really, if you think of it, this took place over a 10-day period, right? So the catalyst for this crisis was back on a November 2nd scoop by CoinDesk that revealed that Alameda Research, the trading firm also run by Sam, held a position worth $5 billion in FTT, the native token of FTX. And the report revealed that Alameda's investment foundation was also in FTT, the token that its sister company had invented, not a fiat currency or other cryptocurrency. And that prompted concern across the cryptocurrency industry regarding Bankman's company's undisclosed leverage and solvency. That was the beginning of the end. Mo, what are your thoughts here?
Oh, where to start? I mean, Jordan covered quite a lot early on. I think what's super interesting is that what this has shown is that centralization is an issue, and what there should be is more of a focus on decentralization. So if we were using a decentralized exchange like Uniswap or SushiSwap, for example, there wouldn't be this issue because there wouldn't be any main actors who hold control over the ecosystem, where there are gray areas. On a decentralized exchange, there are no gray areas. It is clearly black and white. So I think for me, that was one of the biggest takeaways to strengthen the position of decentralization within the ecosystem. Directly in terms of what happened with FTX, we can look through it. We can look through what's on chain. We can look through what's off chain. But fundamentally, it was bad actors. Again, to echo what Jordan was saying, and it's quite interestingly, crypto Twitter played a big part as well, because after the CoinDesk report, it wasn't until 4 days later when CZ came out saying they were going to liquidate just over 2 billion worth of FTT token, and that's what started the cascade effect into what's now happened.
Great segue. So this is going to take me into the next question. So like you just said, Mo, this is where it all starts to go down. So the world's largest crypto exchange, Binance, walks away from a deal to acquire FTX. And the starting point of FTX's troubles really was July of last year, when Binance was an early investor in the exchange, sold its stake, right? And they are rivals for 2.1 billion worth of FTT, the token launched by FTX. And I keep repeating this so people don't get confused between FTT and FTX, right? And at the time, the move was seen as a logical parting of ways, so to speak, because a rift had formed between Bankman-Fried and Binance's CZ, Changpeng Zhao, who had very differing views on the approach to regulating crypto. So their differing views on approach to regulating crypto, Jordan, what do you say to this? Was this really the reason why this all just fell apart?
Oh, there's many reasons why this fell apart, and we're learning those reasons in real time. But one of the biggest was Sam had spent over $100 million in the United States buying access to US regulators, to the Biden administration, largely all given to the Democratic Party, in hopes of creating a pro-crypto friendly framework for how companies like FTX could thrive. What we saw was a very serious accusation by CZ, the CEO and founder of Binance, that Bankman was using this access to effectively block Binance, and was in fact bad-mouthing Binance in DC. And of course, rightfully so, CZ was upset. What's fascinating is we saw this take place, as Mohamed mentioned, in real time on crypto Twitter. CZ actually took to Twitter to call Sam Bankman-Fried out. I think we're going to learn that there were a couple major missteps and mistakes that Sam Bankman-Fried made, not just being over leveraged, not just creating your own form of cryptocurrency and borrowing against it, but the ego that he must have had to buy out the #1 cryptocurrency exchange in the world, to buy them out when they're his seed investor. He didn't have to do that. To give Binance that kind of leverage over him and over the exact token that he was using as collateral, FTT, as you mentioned, Zen, this is, easily the beginning of the end. And Binance being in that position, of course, freaked the market. Whether or not CZ even sold any of that, it was enough to create that bank run. And within a 24-hour period, you saw over $5 billion in withdrawal demands. Of course, that's what created that liquidity crunch. And that's where it all, the music stopped for Sam.
The music definitely stopped very abruptly. And, interestingly enough, within hours of filing for bankruptcy, FTX was hacked. So the exchange noted unauthorized transactions that may have stolen close to 500 million in assets, and which were spotted by Elliptic. Okay, so the hacker continued to drain wallets for several days using what analysts called an on-chain spoofing. But the hacker reportedly then invested those funds into Ether. What? How does this even happen? Mo, please pipe in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hack was just over 600 million. What was super interesting was that the balance sheet had also emerged, and there was roughly, I think, an $8 billion gap between liability and assets. So that there was a lot of misgivings. I think there was also November 7th, I think it was, is when Animoca, the CEO, so Caroline, had offered to Binance to buy the FTT tokens at $22 market price. So again, this was something for those who've been on crypto Twitter for a number of years. Whenever there was talks of anything negative around FTT, it's always, we'll buy anything you have at market price. And they continued in that vein. But this time it was the beginning of the end. I think it's notable to mention that Luna and the fall of the Terra Luna ecosystem probably did have a big impact on the FTX ecosystem, due to their was it the liquidation engine they have at the back end, which was supposedly the best way to protect market makers. Essentially, it wasn't protecting anyone. It was just having no veils between market maker and exchange in that instance. And they were, for a period of time, the only way to exit liquidity from the Terra Luna ecosystem. So there was maybe somewhere between a 5 to 10 billion hole on their balance sheet. So I think this does go back, and there's, to Jordan's point, there are a number of different things, and I feel this is one of the instigating factors as well for a big windfall or gap on their balance sheet.
Yeah, and all this was prompted by the freeze that you're referencing that took place on November 10th. There was another freeze by the Bahamas securities regulators. They froze the assets of FTX Digital Markets. Now, FTX's Bahamian subsidiary is that, FTX Digital Markets. And this was following the news that Bankman-Fried was seeking up to $8 billion in capital to bail out the exchange. And on that same day, the Californian Department of Financial Protection and Innovation unauthorized transactions on FTX. So now you have this Bankman-Fried, where he was just 28 years old, not that seasoned, but sorry, FTX became one of the largest crypto exchanges in just 3 years with such a massive valuation of $32 billion. He used aggressive marketing, including a Super Bowl ad campaign and the purchase of naming rights to the home of the Miami Heat basketball team. He became known for his political lobbying, to Jordan's point, and donations, and was well known for supporting the cryptocurrency industry very broadly. I mean, as values plunged early in 2022, he facilitated deals totaling about $1 billion to bail out cryptocurrency companies struggling as a result of the declines in token prices. So to the naked eye, he was the most trustworthy stand-up guy. Jordan, do you think it all just got out of control? I mean, if he makes Bernie Madoff look like an amateur.
Absolutely. This is way bigger than Bernie Madoff. This is way bigger than Enron. What we have just witnessed is not just the worst week in cryptocurrency history. What we have witnessed is an individual who duped not just an entire industry, but duped the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, duped Sequoia Capital, duped the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Singapore. Temasek was the venture arm of GIC, the Sovereign Wealth Fund in Singapore, and deployed capital at a $25 billion valuation in their round. I believe that closed. That was a $420 million in at $25 billion, which was October of 2021. And as you said, he was in the market raising money at a $32 billion valuation. This individual paid Bill Clinton to come to his conference, FTX Bahamas, in the Bahamas. This individual surrounded himself with Tom Brady and Giselle and Kevin O'Leary, and massive public spokespeople. As you mentioned, that Super Bowl ad with Larry David that's now being parodied, because Larry David is literally quoted in that ad as saying, "Nah, I don't think so," in reference to FTX being a trustworthy platform. Sam's not a kid. We can say he's 28 years old. He's not much younger than me. Sam's an adult. He's a man. Yeah. He has responsibility. And the whole charade of being, whether he's on the spectrum or whether he can't make eye contact, this is all nonsense that we have to put aside and recognize that you were a fiduciary of the money that you raised. You had a responsibility to the 5 million plus global users of your platform, many of whom have had, their entire life savings wiped out. He needs to pay. Someone needs to be held accountable. The reason this is also different, one of the comments I'm hearing is, no one went to jail, after the 2008, 2009 financial crisis. The truth is we didn't have a villain then. We had a group of banks, almost no bank was left out, and almost everyone was playing with over collateral there, or over levered there, with mortgage-backed securities and credit default swaps and things of that nature. What you have here is a true villain. You have an individual who's now become the face, amidst the Elizabeth Holmes trial and everything else. People have forgotten about Do Kwon. People are, not even talking about that anymore. They're talking about this one individual who pulled one over the entire industry. Someone's got to pay for this. I'd be very surprised if Sam gets off without any jail time here. I do think that someone's got to go to prison for it. My prediction is it's Sam, and I predict that aggressive regulators, specifically the Southern District of New York, come after him with everything they've got.
Wow, that's some prediction. And you know what? I echo your sentiment. Those are very, very wise words from a true expert. We are out of time. Mo, thank you so much for piping in. Jordan, what a pleasure having you on. What a great enlightening conversation. And thank you for clarifying what went wrong and, how to make sense of it all.
Thanks for having us.
That was Hello Open Metaverse, brought to you by Animoca Brands, featuring the awesome Jordan Fried, CEO and founder of NFT.com, and Mohamed Ezeldin, head of Tokenomics at Animoca Brands. The ongoing implications for the future of FTX and the broader cryptocurrency industry are ongoing and difficult to assess. You have to remember to do your homework. Always research, and remember, get your edutainment from a trusted source. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Animoca Brands as a worldwide industry leader in digital, entertainment, blockchain, gamifications, and digital property rights. Animoca Brands plays a key role in the future growth of the metaverse. Ranked by the Financial Times as a high-growth company, Animoca Brands creates a new asset class, GameFi economies, and a more equitable digital framework contributing to the building of the open metaverse. For more information and to become part of the excitement, go to animocabrands.com. That's animocabrands.com.
All right, so let's pick up this conversation. So the FTX collapse has been compared to the 2014 blowup of MTGOX, once the top crypto exchange that accounted for around 70% of Bitcoin transactions until its fatal hack. Users who lost funds in that disaster are still waiting for compensation after years of delay to a really lengthy court battle. It's feared that FTX victims, Jordan and Mo, could have a similar wait ahead of their assets if they receive anything at all. Mo, we'll start with you. What will happen to FTX?
I think the worst has happened already. They've applied for bankruptcy. They're insolvent. No one's going to require FTX in its current state. This is the end. But while it's the end of FTX, it's by no means the end of crypto. And I think we need to echo that sentiment right now, that this is a black day in crypto. We've had black swan events, and you've referenced one with the Mt. Gox hack. But every time as a community, we've come back stronger. And I see this being no different. The fact that Bitcoin hasn't gone to zero, the fact that we're still here having this conversation, it means the future's bright. I know over at Animoca Brands, our focus is always on building, and it's not just us that share that sentiment as well. What we're building for the future is, and it's not just us, we look at brands like Nike, like Adidas, like Ubisoft. There are so many people entering the space. If you're active on Twitter, you saw that JP Morgan have applied for an e-wallet, so for you to be able to host your cryptocurrency. So actually we're seeing more conventional businesses enter the space. So for me, while this might be the end of FTX, it's by no means the end of crypto. If anything, this can only make us stronger.
Well said. Well said. So the key takeaways are FTX collapses in early November of this year following a report by CoinDesk highlighting potential leverage and solvency concerns involving the trading firm Alameda Research. And then FTX faced a liquidity crisis and a search for bailout funds. And we have the rival exchange Binance considered buying portions of the company, but they quickly backed out. By November 11th of 2022, this very year, FTX's CEO stepped down and the company filed for bankruptcy. Then you have in the hours following that, FTX experienced a possible hack in which hundreds of millions worth of tokens were stolen. So this is a very strange course of events. Jordan, how will this set the community back, and what needs to change going forward?
Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from the collapse of FTX. The first is, if you were to really look at Sam Bankman-Fried and his intentions, I think we can now come to the conclusion that Sam was never a proponent of the vision behind decentralization or Bitcoin itself. If you look at that 2008, 2009 white paper, it was released at a time where it was very reactionary to the financial crisis that was happening globally at the time. It was this idea that banks shouldn't be the one being the ones bailed out after taking us almost to the brink of a financial Armageddon. The world needs a decentralized internet native payment mechanism where we can send money to each other to the opposite side of the globe without Visa, without MasterCard, without American Express, without Western Union or MoneyGram, and something that's inflationary, but only to a point where there'll never be more than 21 million Bitcoin, unlike the US dollar or pounds, where the last few years during a global pandemic, it's been printed recklessly. So what we've learned is that there's a value for that decentralization. As Mo pointed out, right now, you've got to be feeling pretty good about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency if you are in the space, recognizing that we're still here, even after the second largest exchange in the world has disappeared. I think that the lessons here are, one, if you don't know where the yield on your coins is coming from, you're likely the yield. You really need to understand that, and you shouldn't be putting your money in places where you do not understand where you're getting paid. And we learned that with Three Arrows Capital. We learned that with Terra Luna in the Anchor protocol, where they were paying 20% yields. Of course, that was unsustainable and came crashing down. We learned that here also with BlockFi, and now also with FTX and the cascading effects it's having in the industry with Genesis trading and everything else. It remains to be seen who else will fall next. So be careful out there. And the next bit, and Mo also pointed this out, is if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. You need, and one of the biggest value propositions of a blockchain is 24/7, 365 access to your capital. You can cross borders with your blockchains, with your blockchain native assets like NFTs or stable coins, or even Bitcoin itself, these protocol native tokens. So we need to understand this as an industry. We need to do a better job making sure that the applications we're building are onboarding people to not centralized interfaces like an FTX or a Binance, but to true crypto native applications. The folks at Animoca Brands do a great job making sure users are using Web3 native wallets. NFT.com is non-custodial as an example. And I don't say that to plug our platform, Zen. I say that because we have a responsibility to our users to make sure they know we're never in possession of their assets.
Well said. No, you didn't come off as plugging your platform. That's my job to do, and that's why I love to plug these platforms, because even from the millennial mom's perspective, in these very edutainment segments that trend extremely well for people to want to be able to gain knowledge, because we do the research for them. So having an expert like you come on and give your sound advice and opinion, and really bird's eye view, but also experts view, that is invaluable and priceless. And Mo, you have that same ability. So right now, there's civil lawsuits that are being filed. In one such class action lawsuit, Sam Bankman-Fried is named along with several celebrities who have promoted FTX in the past, including Tom Brady, Larry David, Naomi Osaka, Shaquille O'Neal, and Steph Curry. So the pressures are mounting, and regulators are going to start to come out. Mo, talk to me about the message Animoca Brands wants to give to the cryptocurrency community right now.
The message has to be what we always believe in, which is the open metaverse, which is we are in this together. FTX was a bad actor. We're still yet to see what the complete fallout of this is, but we're in it together. We're building. What we're all aiming for is to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And it's, again, not your crypto, not your keys. But I think what's super interesting, and something we don't talk about enough, is how NFTs have changed the game, and how they've allowed a new, I guess, the next 1 million or 10 million users to come into the space from that aspect, and the power that we're seeing, especially on an application layer, where with fungible tokens, people didn't actually understand what the use cases were from your everyday layman. But as an NFT, if I'm a musician, I know now I don't need to sign my soul away to a record label. I'm in control of my own. I have ownership over my own assets, and if I'm a game developer, I can now have ownership, or players can have ownership over their in-game assets as well. So I think there's a lot of positives happening in the space. It would be a shame just to focus on the fallout from FTX, of all of the great building that's happening behind the scenes as well.
Well said. Well, we are out of time. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. Mo, what a pleasure. Very, very great, enlightening segment, and spot on with your commentary. Thank you, my experts.
Thank you
so much.
All right, guys, the ongoing implications for the future of FTX and the broader cryptocurrency community industry are ongoing and difficult to assess. But like Mo said, Animoca Brands is here to ensure a safe, open metaverse for all. Experts like Jordan Fried are far and few in between in an escalating industry where everybody claims that they have the next big thing. Remember, you have to do your homework. It's not easy to just invest in something you are not well versed on. Knowledge is power, and don't forget that. That was Jordan Fried, founder and CEO of NFT.com, chairman of Immutable Holdings, the Web3 holding company, and founding team at Hedera Hashgraph. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was our Hello Open Metaverse, brought to you by Animoca Brands, featuring the awesome Mo Ezeldin, head of Tokenomics. We'll be right back after this.